Hello students, today I'm going to give you an overview and a rundown of this information so you can prepare for your test, industries, cities, immigration, and progressive movement. So you can take notes as I go through this presentation. Question 1, who was the captain of the oil industry? His name was John D. Rockefeller. So John D. Rockefeller was the captain of the oil industry, and he created the Standard Oil Company, which was a monopoly. I abbreviate the word monopoly. What advancement in transportation increased industrial development? He created national markets, and that is the Transcontinental Railroad. Or just railroads in general. You can also include automobile, steam engines, cable cars, and airplanes, but that's later on. Who invented the phonograph, the light bulb, and other electrical devices? And that's Thomas Edison, who was a wizard of Menlo Park. He was also employed with Henry Ford. 4, lower cost production, advertising, having access to raw materials, energy, and inventions transformed the U.S. from an agricultural to an industrial nation. So lower cost production, advertising, access to raw materials, energy, and inventions made the U.S. be less dependent on farming. So you had a lot of factories like steel factories, automobile plants, rubber plants, you had coal mines, you had textile plants, weaving mills, that type of thing, those type of things. The process of using machinery to do work is called mechanization. Write it down like this so I have enough room. It greatly increased farm productivity and reduced labor needs, particularly on farms. Okay, so that's questions 1 through 5. All right. Question 6, who was the captain of the railroad and shipping industry? And that was Vanderbilt. A good way to remember that is that Vanderbilt Railroads. He was known as the Commodore, and we learned about his past. When he was a 16-year-old, he borrowed $100 from his mother to buy a boat, and he started a shipping company, and he monopolized that. 7, Carnegie is to steel as Rockefeller is to oil. Okay, the relationship there is captain to industry, to their industry. We know that steel is made from iron ore and it's cooked. 8, what individuals invented the airplane and advanced in transportation? Wright brothers. First plane flight lasted less than a minute at Kitty Hawk, North Carolina. So that's an interesting fact here. That's why North Carolina license plates say first in flight. Number 9, what influential black leader was born in slavery? I believe that blacks should focus on gaining vocational education. I believe that blacks should accept social separation and should be patient in gaining full civil rights. That was Booker T. Washington. He was born in Hillsford, Virginia, which is in Franklin County. Number 10, what influential black leader was born in Massachusetts after the Civil War? Believed in, it says fun, sorry about that, full political, civil, and social rights for blacks, and he helped found NAACP. and that was W.B. Du Bois. William Edward Beauregard Du Bois. Question number 11. Pittsburgh is the steel as Chicago is the meat factory. Again, the relationship is city to its specialized industry. Okay, Pittsburgh's in the Northeast. Good thing to know that. Chicago's in the Midwest. Chicago's in Illinois, in the Midwest. Pittsburgh's in the Northeast and Pennsylvania. So that's 6 to 11. Question number 12. Jim Crow law separated people based on what? Race and color. Okay? And we need to understand that it was directed against African Americans. And it legalized discrimination. And it was unfair. So, Jim Crow laws. And Jim Crow laws are named after a minstrel character. Number 13, if you see two water fountains that say colored and white, this is because of what laws? Jim Crow laws. Number 14, New England became the center of what major industry after the Civil War? And it's the textile. '15, rundown apartments in cities where immigrants and poor people lived were called what? They were called tenements, which was one aspect of problems in the city. One of the problems that people experienced is there was not enough adequate housing, and they had to get and rent in cheaply built apartments called tenements. They were cramped, they were dirty, they could catch on fire easily. It was just not a healthy and viable place to live, particularly for immigrants and poor people. Number 16, let's cursor down. What organizations gained power, that's a key word, gained power by promising immigrants economic assistance, housing, and jobs? The leader of these organizations were led by a boss, and that is called a political machine. And they're often corrupt, and they tried to buy votes. And we learned that Boss Tweed was a major political boss at Tammany Hall in New York City, leader of the Democratic Party. So that's 12 through 16. All right. So you have 17 through 20. 17 says, if a 5-year-old is forced to work on an assembly line in a Henry Ford plant, what negative effect of industrialization is that? Is this. So we need to add that there. Typo there. The question mark. That is child labor. Now there are child labor laws that say that you can't hire a child or juvenile under the age of 14 to 15 according to some state laws. And you can't have a child who's eligible to work in your factory or your business during the school hours, because that violates school compulsory attendance laws. So it's against the law for businesses to do that. 18, to help big businesses prosper, they put up advertisements. On billboards, newspapers, and magazines to persuade consumers to buy the products and goods. 19 is another analogy. Andrew Carnegie, it's the steel industry as Vanderbilt. It's the shipping and railroad industry. 20, what organizations were formed during the progressive movement to fight for better pay and working conditions? And they're called labor unions. labor unions. First major labor union is the AFL, 1890, founded by Samuel Gompers. Okay, 21. What helped the United States shift from an agricultural nation to an industrial nation? There are a lot of factors. Access to raw materials and energy, like coal, oil, water, wood, zinc, iron, that type of thing, those type of things. Another thing that helped it shift to an industrial nation is the growth of industry. It's the growth of industry in general. Okay. Then you had available workforce. Okay. That's what made it shift from an agricultural country to an industrial nation. Access to raw materials, growth of industry, available workforce. Those are some aspects there. 22. The belief of wanting African Americans to achieve equality was shared by what two influential black leaders? Achieve equality, two influential black leaders, Du Bois, who wanted the fast approach. You have Washington, Booker T. Washington, a slow, patient approach. 23. Henry Ford used what process to mass-produce cars and making the automobile more affordable to the average American? And that's the assembly line. They could produce they could produce one car per 93 minutes. And for his first car he mass produced in grand scale was a Model T Ford. Complete the analogy. Irish immigrants are to better job opportunities in the potato famine as blank as the gold rush and railroad industry. The answer there is Chinese immigrants. So they face discrimination and racial prejudice while working in the railroad industry and gold mine industry. And these are push and pull factors for both immigrant groups. Questions 25 through 28 have a chart you have to look at. I'm going to go through these questions and answers. What city's population increased the most between 1850 and 1900? And that's New York City. And we can look at that by studying this part of the graph. Population of New York City went from 500,000 to around 3.3 million by 1900. What city's population increased the least from 1850? So we can apparently look at here, and that's St. Louis. Probably less immigration and not the large abundance of raw materials in a large labor force. And physical features have something to do with that, particularly water around it. 27, Chicago's population increased from 500,000 in 1880. All right, so we're going to look right here. So the population in 1880 in Chicago was 500,000, and it went to we'll say 1.7 million. All right, 28, what city was most likely affected the most and least by immigration? The most was New York City. We can look at that and tell there's a large spike between 1850 and 1900, large influx of immigrants into New York City. There's a lot of industry, and the physical features there in New York are more favorable to a lot of industry. And the least is going to be St. Louis. So this is part one, and I'm going to talk about part two later on. Thanks for listening. Peace.